Let's have a demonstration of how storage account works. So we are here in Azure portal, and I'm going to type in storage account, right? Then that's where you can see a storage account. And also storage account, if you have used it recently, it will show up in the recent services list. So let's click on storage account, and I already got some storage account. And how about I create a new one? So I will create a new account, click on create. And here there's a lot of information that you can utilize, right? Apparently I want to put this into the same subscription resource group. Now I need to enter a storage account name. This storage account name has to be unique. It has to be unique globally in all Azure storage accounts, including other people's, other companies' storage account. And this has to be 3 to 24 characters with the number and the lowercase only. So let's say if I want to enter like DS684 dash, you will see there's an error message saying that it can only contain lowercase letter and number, right? So what if I do test, test, test? It's okay, but if I put there's an issue too, right? Uppercase is not allowed. So start DS684 test, and there are like different options that you can choose. Of course, you choose it's a region. Remember, we choose this in East US, right? Then we have the different performance level. You can do standard or premium. Of course, premium will offer you better performance, lower latency, which it is. But apparently, this comes at a price premium, right? Redundancy, you can choose local, which means it will save three copies of the same file in the same data center. It's still local, right? If one machine broken, you still have the two backups in the same data center. But if the data center fail, then you will lose the whole entirety of your storage. Now there is a zone redundant. Zone redundant simply means you have you have three copies in three zones, one, two, three. If one data center fail, you still have data from the other two, so which is of course more safe. Then there's geo-redundant. Geo-redundant basically means you will have an option with a failover capability in a secondary region, right? Like we said, if ours is in East US, but if anything happens to East US region, entire region is off. If you have, you can if you have if you have chosen this geo-redundancy and map a copy to West US, then you can use that. Okay, so in this case, we just use the local just to save some money. And then next, advanced. Advanced requires security transfer. All these are like truly as the name suggests, advanced. And usually we are not going to worry about those. And so we'll also do networking. And here is where you can specify. Usually, for this particular case, it's just a demo. So we are just use the enable public access from all networks. It will open to all access, all requests from everywhere. You can also enable public access from selected virtual network and IP address. For example, I can specify I will only like the virtual network, right? Virtual network, which virtual network you want to use. We have a DS sample VNet or DS684, which we created before. Or you can just disable public access completely, only allow private access, which means it's an endpoint. That's the one that that's this option that we talked about. Disable everything from outside, only allow traffic from inside Azure network to access. In this case, you will need to add private endpoint. So this will, of course, increase the complexity. We are not going to use that, but just that you are aware. And besides, that's more like Azure administrative thing. So it's beyond the scope of this course. So we're not going to talk about this. For our educational purpose, we will just use the enable public access from all networks. So data protection, of course, enable soft delete, enable point-in-time series store, enable different ways like soft delete means that they actually still keep a copy somehow. For containers, for file shares, and checking enable versioning, you can have different versions, enable change feed and access control like on the version level. Then followed by encryption. By default, all the storage are encrypted by using the Microsoft managed key. If you, for some reason, need to use your own key, right, which makes sense. Sometimes companies have their own requirement. They have to use their own key instead of a third-party key. That's fine. You can choose this, and there are more options to configure once you choose this. Right. So for our purpose, of course, again, we choose the default value, and you can choose all service types to get encrypted, or just blob and file only. And all service types, as we said, there are four of them: blob, file, table, and queues. And finally, there's something called infrastructure encryption. There's more like on the administrative side. So we are going to skip this, and then we follow by tags, review, and we can create. Deployments in progress. Usually this one is relatively fast, so I'm going to wait here. So now deployment is ready. Okay, deployment is has been succeeded. So let's go to the resource, which is this new storage account. As you can see here, storage account, you have the normal overview, different performance that we choose, the replication we choose, storage account. These days, whenever you create your storage account, there will always be version 2. There's no more version 1 available. Then there are other things like provision state and properties that you choose. And to us, the most interesting thing here is the data storage. The data storage, as you can see, there are four types: containers, file shares, queue, and table. We mentioned that the queues and the tables are out of the scope of this course. File shares, we will talk about this later, but these are for those business files. Containers is for blob. So there's a default container here, but usually you don't want to touch that. If you want to create your own container, you click the containers button, add container button. Now, container name can be many different things, and it does not need to be unique. Because if you think about the URL we mentioned the URL, right? This URL, this part is a root URL. It has to be, this part with a storage account name is a root URL. It has to be unique. But once inside this unique link, you can have as many different names as you want. And this can be the same as other people's container name. So container name does not need to be globally unique. It just need to be unique inside your storage account. You can say even have two storage accounts or your own, each with the same name of a container. So I would just put a DS684. But still, you can only contain lowercase letters, numbers, and hyphens, and must begin with a letter, or etc. Right? It will end with test. It allows hyphen. The reason it failed it was because hyphen cannot be served as the last character. So if I put it as like a DS684 test container, that works. So I will just create this. Now that I have container and I can move data, upload certain data, I can upload files by drag and drop files here. So let me pause the video and get my file ready. So now I have my data ready. I'm going to drag and drop a file here, which is iris.csv containing the iris dataset. For those who don't know what iris dataset is, it's a classic dataset in data science domain. So I select this file. I can also upload multiple ones, but for now I'm just choosing this one and I'm going to upload. And this one has been successfully uploaded. I click here. You can see this is the blob, right? So now we have the storage account. If you remember, this is the name of a storage account, DS684 test with a container, DS64 dash test. And this is the storage account to container to blob. Within this blob, as you can see, this starts with the storage account name, blob, core Windows .NET, then followed by container name, followed by blob name. This is how you uniquely identify each blob. And then down here, you have all the information. Like remember, see this? This is hot tier. And then you have like archive set up. You can have other like content type, etc. Now that we have this blob, there's a lot of things, a lot more things we can do. As you can see, delete, change tier. If I want to change tier, I can change that from hot to cool, cold, archive. That's the different options we have. We can also define different life cycle control, right? So, and this can be done in both container level and the blob level. Let's say I just get into here, right? And I want to see. I think there is a. Oh, by the way, if you click on edit for text files, you can see that text file. And this is, if you are familiar with this data set, that's the classic iris data set. So now we want to do, but as we said, you can change access level. You can change access level and you can change tier for this container for the blob. But oops, okay, we just showed the change tier thing. Let's go back to the storage account. As we said, Azure provides you with ability to further down. Let's go to storage account. Azure provides you with the ability to manage the tier changing automatically, which forming a life cycle management, right? And this can be done in storage account level. It's set up here in storage account somewhere under here, life cycle management. So here you can create different rules that is applicable to all or some of the blob or file that you can move them at a certain criteria. For example, if I want to add a rule here, right? Rule name, sample rule. You can either apply rules to all blobs or you can limit with filter. By using this limit with filter, later on you will be asked here, filter set, you will be asked to enter the container name, the folder, the prefix. So I'm going to show this later. So let's choose limit blob with filters. And you can choose different blob types. And next is the actual rule. So here, base blobs is last modified if it's last modified, let's say 30 days ago. Then you can move that to cool code archive. Let's say I put this as a cool moved archive. And I can further add a condition if it's modified 365 days ago. Maybe this change, let me change this one to move this to cool to code. Okay, if it's 30 days ago, modified 30 days ago, hasn't been modified for 30 days, you can move to code. Then after 365, after a year, you can move to archive. And finally, after maybe 7 years, right? Let's modify let's say 10 years. How about that? 10 years, then delete the blob. So this is the rule chain or life cycle management rule chain that you can set up here, making this through a series of timelines and moving that gradually to the desired tier it want to be. The next step is you can define prefix. What if I only want that to be in which container? Right? I think we call it DS684 test. That's the container that every blob in that container will get applied. That's where we have that. Okay, then I can click on add, but here I don't we are not really applying that, so I'm just going to cancel. So this is how you move through the life cycle of this blobs in a certain container. Now, the other important thing we talked about, we talked about usage, tiered storage lifecycle, and we talked about what we also mentioned the network access. Now let's get to the privilege to access. So who can access this? This is who can access this storage account, or who can access a certain container, for example, right? Let's just say there is something called access control in the portal, and you define the access by assigning roles. Assigning roles, for example, right now it's like you can just add role assignment, and you can remove role assignment if you have privilege. Apparently, since I'm using the school account, I don't have the privilege. But this is what is possible. You can just define different users, associate the user with the name of with the certain role. For example, what roles do you have? You're owner. You can do everything and anything. Contributor, you can modify and change. You can do reader. You can only read, or like there are even more roles here. But basically, you can assign a user or a group of users to a certain role so that you can access they can access the storage account, the content in storage account, or you can even do that within the containers. Okay, so the other way of accessing is through what they call the access key or shared access signature. These two are very similar. It provides you with a token. When you utilize this token, you will be able to access uh, this container. Shared access signature requires a little bit more work. It as you can define what you can do, what a service this will be applied to, allow the resource type. Is there only container or just each blob? Then what you can do, read, write, delete, you can choose or unselect, defining what you want to do, what do you want to allow this SAS, as shared access signature, SAS to enable. Then you can define a start and expiration date so that you can control. Let's say if you have a file that you want your user to access within 5 hours. After 5 hours, it's too dangerous for this file to keep on exposing on the internet. Then that's when you can define the time window here. So SAS, you can see this is much more complex with all the configurations, but more powerful, right? The easiest of which is access key. This is like a brute force access key, simple and easy to use. You have this storage account name, and you want to create this access key. Usually, it will create two keys for you, and the recommendation is do not touch key 2. You may want to show the key, show these two keys, and save it somewhere just in case anything happens. You will use that key too. But usually you should hide one away and just using one. It's just a random character set, so I'm not going to show that. There's no need to show that. You can copy but you can once you show that, you can copy this into your code. Use this key to access the storage side. But the problem with this approach is this is the permanent key. unless you rotate it. So if you don't rotate it, the key will always be there, and the key will always be active, and this will be applicable to all objects inside uh, your uh, your storage account. So be careful. Do not leak this key to anybody. And in fact, you are not recommended to use this one. We will use this one, this key, to access our storage account just because the simplicity, right? Because right now, really, I don't, I cannot imagine what the hacker can do, even if they have access to the storage account. So still, we are not going to leak the key to any hacker, but what I'm saying here is our security concern is not as much as the standard corporation. For a standard corporation, you either want to use the role-based access management that we showed at the very beginning, or you want to use a shared access signature specifying what options you want to grant, or what power you want to grant to the user, and what time window you allow them to do so.